and you know what you need to do. So thank you for joining with us today to be part of this spiritual community. We know you have lots of choices, and we're delighted you chose to invest your time with us today. And I'm continuing the talks for this month with a lovely and loving theme, Love Lives as Me. And before I get started, I have a couple of quotes from some surprising new thought sources. From Madonna, "To be brave is to love unconditionally without expecting anything in return." And then from Katherine Hepburn, "Love has nothing to do with what you're expecting to get, only with what you're expecting to give, which is everything." So there's a theme, right? What does love living as you mean to you? If you put your hand on your heart and you say it to yourself, love lives as me, do you believe it? What's the experience you have of yourself as love when you breathe that idea in and breathe it out and embody it? I'm previewing the visioning class from home office. And yesterday's class was about embracing and embodying the vision. And the big vision, of course, is, how do we live as love? And so it's really about how we see ourselves with the eyes of love and as love and act as love. And so it's an inside job. And you know this, right? So one of my writing friends reminded me of a very small little kid's book written 100 years ago, not really, 60 years ago, by a woman named Joan Walsh, Anglund, for parents and caregivers to read to babies. And it's called Love is a Special Way of Feeling. It's quite out of print. And it's a fabulous way to instill in very, very young children the idea of experiencing love as an inside job, reinforced by connection with people who love us and whom we love. The first words that start the book are, "Love is the safe way we feel when we sit on our mother's lap with her arms around us tight and close." And I kind of feel like I need to start with a disclaimer, because everybody didn't have that feeling. And everybody doesn't have early childhood memories of feeling loved, nurtured, and cared for, or experiences that instill that sense of safety and of being loved and feeling deeply connected. And just because we may not have had that feeling, that experience when we were young, or not consistently anyway, doesn't mean we can't create that experience for ourselves and learn how to feel connected, safe, and loved within ourselves and ultimately with others. We all have that ability and opportunity to rewrite scripts if we didn't get a script that said we were loved as children. And so we get to rethink and reframe and reconsider our history and our stories and see them in ways that are more supporting and more uplifting and more useful for us as adults. And I put that word in quotes because I'm not sure what an adult is anymore. But anyway, and there's a lot of scientific neuroscience, psychiatry, psychology, physiology that supports this kind of activity. Hungarian-Canadian physician, Dr. Gabor Mate, and Dutch-born American psychiatrist, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, have spoken and written intensively through their working lives about how what we experience as children has impacts through the rest of our lives. And if we didn't have the childhood, the ideal childhood that we would have liked to have had, how we can make peace with and heal our lived experience. And lots and lots and lots of other people have written and spoken about similar processes. So we don't have to feel stuck or constrained or limited if our early childhood experiences didn't match the storybook. And some individuals have actually used those difficult growing up years and experiences as springboards to motivate them to become what they choose to be in later years. So that's the end of my disclaimer. And if that's your experience, you're not alone. Lots and lots and lots of people have had less than optimal early childhood years. And it isn't something that is a limitation or an anchor that slows us down in our choosing how to be in the world. We can still be love and feel love and know love without having had that experience when we were small. So back to Joan's book. The next few heavily illustrated pages read, "Love is the good way we feel when we talk to someone and they want to listen and don't tell us to go away and be quiet." And the image is of a little child talking to his big sister. The next page is, "It's that happy way we feel when we save a bird that's been hurt, or feed a lost cat, or calm a frightened colt. Love is found in unexpected places. It's there in the quiet moment when we first discover a beautiful thing. When we watch a bird soar high against a pale blue sky, when we see a lovely flower that no one else has noticed. Love shifts." That was the end of the quote. "Love shifts from being something we experience that originates from outside ourselves, something else that someone does for us or to us, to something that we do, we think, we cause, we create, we enact, that changes our experience for ourselves, and sometimes changes the felt experience for other people too." And then Joan finishes the book by saying, "Love is the happy feeling that stays inside your heart for the rest of your life." Now, I'm not sure it stays there perpetually, but we have that sense, that felt sense of what it feels like to be loved and to be loved. And we can return to that as often as we choose because we have that ability. We just had Valentine's Day this past week, and this is a holiday that creates a huge range of thoughts and feelings on all ends of the spectrum. It may have had its origin in a pagan fertility rite. It probably did. The Catholic Church tried to make it more presentable and named it after a couple of Catholic saints named Valentine, both of whom were martyred by the Roman Empire for their religious beliefs and their healing abilities. The origin of the holiday itself is rather obscure, to say the least. And it's a feeling that lives in all of us at intermittent times and is present when we choose to focus our attention in that way. The earliest recorded love letter goes back to 1415 CE. I've forgotten who it was written by, but it was some guy who was a prisoner in the Tower of London and was writing to his significant other. Written statements of love and adoration became commonplace in the early 1900s when it wasn't so much work to create a Valentine. You could go to the store and buy a pre-printed heart, and you could just sign your name and it was good enough. And many of us, when we were young school kids, got to have Valentine's Day parties at our elementary schools. And the biggest worry was that you'd miss somebody in your class when you were writing out a Valentine's card for everybody so nobody would be left out, right? So what's that feeling Is it obligation? Is it duty? Is it inclusion? Is it really appreciating and valuing the people in your universe? The answer to each one of us is personal, right? Well, when I was married, my husband always made a huge, great big deal about buying these magnificent, extravagant flowers that belonged in the lobby of the, I don't know, some great huge hotel. And then these crazy, absurd big boxes of candy. And it took me a long time to figure out that for him, gifting was the way that love was expressed in his family when he was young and when he got older too. And I realized later that he went so overboard with the gifts because he was trying to feel love within himself. And that was his only mechanism. We do it however we do it, and there's no wrong way. Just that awareness of paying attention and being cognizant, sensitive to our own way of experiencing life. That's the trick. That's the challenge. That's the opportunity that each one of us has. And this Hallmark holiday that we just had can create an expectation that can turn into an experience of duty and obligation to give big fancy stuff that we don't want, or maybe we do. And if we're not paying attention to what we're actually feeling and experiencing, we won't get joy out of it. Because what matters is that internalized felt experience. What would love do? How would love live as me? Self-awareness. I started to say it's not all it's cracked up to be, but actually it is. Self-awareness is the only way we know what we're actually experiencing. And otherwise, we're just kind of floating on the surface of our lives. It's not simple. It doesn't happen automatically. It takes work. It takes intention and it takes focus. And it takes a decision that we decide to understand ourselves a little bit better. And we decide to love ourselves and we decide to pay attention and experience our lives on purpose. Daniel Nahmod's song, Love is My Decision, gets a regular airplay this time of year. You know how the lyrics go. Love is my decision. It's up to me to give of my heart. No one else can tell me to start. And once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to stand on the bridge. Love is my decision. No one else can make me forgive. Once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Love is my decision. It's up to me to dance down the road. Love is my decision. No one else can lighten my load. Once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. Love is my decision right here and now. Love is a decision we take. It's a decision, it's an intentional point of view that we make. So what is love to you? How do you show up in your life as love? And how do you decide to be love, regardless of how you may or may not be feeling it? And how do you remember to be it when life happens and things are crazy or not working right, or the person in front of you is driving 15 miles below the speed limit like they were this morning? How do you decide to be love? The answer to this question is going to be different for every single person. And I think we really, really, really have to start with self-love and self-compassion and that self-awareness. Remember earlier this month, I spoke about how the Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh had no comprehension of self-loathing or self-hatred. It's not useful if we say we're going to love our neighbors as ourselves if we don't love ourselves. And yet that's the bias that happens in a lot of Western civilization. We have to understand and grasp what self-love means in order to be able to live as love and live as love to ourselves and to other people. It's not straightforward, and yet it's possible for every single one of us. And it helps if we can remember what Ernest Holmes wrote in 365 Science of Mind, yesterday's reading in the daily reading, page 56, paragraphs 2 and 3. There is an infinite self-knowingness, which we call spirit. It is ruled by law and impelled by love. Each of us is an individual center in it, without being an individual separate from it. We are rooted in love, rooted in the one, which produces infinite, limitless variety. Therefore, God is uniquely individual and uniquely personal to each one of us. We are not one in God or one with God. We are one of God. Let us keep our thoughts turned to the divine presence within us and within each other, deeply desiring that we become more aware of the love we have for ourselves and for one another and the world. May our consciousness be open to a deeper understanding of life. So there's this interesting entanglement almost of our love for ourselves and our love for others and our love for the world and our love for God. It's just one great, huge, entangled, delicious mess. And we each get to be in that spot and see ourselves as love and see ourselves walking through the world that way, no matter what's going on in front of our eyes. It's a practice. That's what it is. It's an experiment. It's an opportunity that each one of us has at every single moment to live as love as each one of us. So I want to close with a piece by poet John Roedel, who was with us back in December. There's no handbook for any of this. There are no hard and fast rules for times like these. You're doing the best you can at holding things together while the world falls apart in this age of fear and fret. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be gentle with yourself and everyone else, because that's all you can really control, isn't it? Yes, things might unravel a bit more before this is all done. You might as well, and it's okay if you do, while the world is resetting its router. We can take turns deciding who gets to cry on the couch. We can take turns being a balm for one another. We can take turns yelling up at the silent sky. We can take turns having insomnia. We can take turns being confessionals for one another. We can take turns brushing the tears off of each other's face. Don't worry about getting it all right. You won't. Don't worry about making mistakes. You will. You're doing the best you can. There's only one great commandment for enduring a storm, and it's this: go easy, my love. Go easy. So here we are, loving ourselves, loving our world, loving the people we love and the people we don't like so much. Loving situations and circumstances and things that seem to be completely out of our control. What do we have to work with? Ourselves and our love of the divine and our awareness that there's only this one love, and the decision we have, the decision we can choose to make to be love in the world. So do that best you can, and let it be enough. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So I want to roll into the prayer, this affirmative prayer, the way that we do it around here. And if I've said anything useful to you, you can hold it in your mind while I speak the words. I recognize this one life, this one love, this one wholeness that lives as me and lives as every individual. And I know that law delivers what love tells it. And each one of us gets to decide what that means at every moment. So I choose to decide to live in love. And I choose again and again and again to decide to cut people some slack, to give people some space, to give myself the same, to make room for mistakes to happen, for opportunities to learn and grow and be and do, because I know that's what love would do. And so I remember to act. I remember to pause. I remember to sit in that space and think, what would love do? And then to the best of my ability at any moment to act that way. And I know that same truth for and about all beings. Every single person has that same opportunity to live as love. And I know everybody's doing the best they can at every moment. So I take a breath and I relax into the activity of life. And I know that each one moves and lives and has their being as love. Letting it all be good enough. And remembering that there is no striving to be that must be done. It is sufficient to be. I relax, allow, and let it be. And so it is.